All right, moving on. North Korea has transferred the remains of 55 U.S. soldiers killed during the Korean War in the 1950s. It's being seen as a first step by Pyongyang to implement an agreement made in the landmark Trump-Kim summit at Singapore in June. A U.S. military transport plane flew into an airfield in North Korea's eastern city of Wonsan to bring the remains to Osan Air Base in South Korea. In a statement, the White House said, and I quote, "Today, Kim Jong-un is fulfilling part of the commitment he made to the president to return our fallen American service members. We are encouraged by North Korea's actions and the momentum for positive change," unquote. Now, soldiers in dress uniforms with white gloves were seen slowly carrying 55 small cases covered with the blue and white United Nations insignia in Osan. The transfer of the remains coincided with the 65th anniversary of the 1953 armistice agreement that ended the fighting, although the two Koreas technically remain at war as a peace treaty was never signed. And Oliver Whitfield-Mochich, WION correspondent, joins us live from Seoul. Oliver, take us through the events that happened in South Korea as we speak about the remains of the American soldiers being brought back from North Korea to South Korea and onwards to the U.S.
Sorry, could you just repeat the question there? I just lost your audio signal.
Oliver, I was meaning to ask you about what happened in South Korea just a couple of hours ago when the mortal remains of the soldiers were brought from North Korea first to South Korea and they'll be taken onwards to the U.S.
Yes, that is correct. We understand that the bodies or the remains of those fallen servicemen who died in the Korean War between 1950 and 1953 will remain in the Osan Air Base just south of Seoul for the next 5 days. There's going to be some preliminary tests that take place to try and identify some of those remains. Then there's going to be a full honour ceremony before they're flown off on Wednesday to the island of Hawaii, where there is a more comprehensive laboratory that can do full DNA testing, as well as some of those analysis that is needed to identify who the remains belong to. And then after that point, they will be released to family members to be buried or to be taken into their care and disposed of in a way that they see fit. The family members have been waiting for up to 68 years now for some of these remains, and it's hoped that this will finally bring them some closure.
Also, Oliver, today is the 65th anniversary of the signing of the armistice agreement in 1953. The two Koreas are technically still at war, but what do you make of the red line that's been drawn by Mike Pompeo, saying that these talks cannot drag on forever, especially on the issue of denuclearization?
Well, it does seem that Mike Pompeo is trying to speed things along. However, Mike Pompeo will have to realize that historically, any talks between South Korea, North Korea and the US have always taken time. Even when you think back to the armistice agreement itself, that the negotiations for that actually began 2 years before the signing of the document. So it took a full 2 years in order for all of the various disagreeing voices to finally come together and finally find some consensus. So the US administration, while I'm sure it would like for this to go as rapidly as possible, if we use history as a guide, it is quite clear that these things can take quite a lot of time. Even if you look back to the six-party talks, those went on for quite a few years before they eventually broke down after North Korea launched that satellite in 2009. So while there might be some hope that these will go rather quickly rather than slowly, it is quite impressive the speed of which we've seen the latest moves by both the US and North Korea. It has to be said that they've both been taking some very strong action from the US. That would be cancelling the military drills, which have angered North Korea so much, those military drills between the US and South Korea. And on North Korea's part, really now, they've taken 3 steps themselves. Back in May, they said that they demolished the Pyongyang nuclear testing site in the northeast of the country. Only a few days ago, we've seen satellite imagery which seems to suggest that Pyongyang is now in the process of decommissioning the Sohae satellite launching center in the northwest. And then now we've had these first bodies being repatriated back to US. So it does seem that things are going rather quickly this time round, but who knows how long it could take all in all.
Indeed. On that note, Oliver, thank you so much for joining us from Seoul. Appreciate it.